sure it was in his newsletter.
The organizer here.
No, I just put mine up.
Good evening, everyone. I want to call to order the Public Safety Committee, and could I have a roll call, please? Here.
Here.
Kalinowski. Bowman.
Here.
Allen.
Here.
Commissioner Kalinowski is excused this evening. And I would like to have a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much. And now we'll call on the Police Department, call on Chief Kelly for his report.
Madam Chair, members of the committee really don't have anything new to report to you this month. In the interest of brevity, I'll leave it at that.
Wow. I don't even know what to say to that. Does anybody have any questions for the chief on his report tonight? Hearing none, we'll move on. We have a... Do we have questions from the audience? No, that's not an agenda item. We have our second alarmer, Chief Rich Garrett, here this evening.
Good evening. I have a short report. I'm going to give you some statistics for 2014 year-to-date. I believe I emailed copies to you and the fire marshal. During the year 2014, second alarmers responded to 5,407 911 calls in Abington Township. And out of those, 3,311 were transported to the hospital. 4,500 of them were medical, 390 were fire, and the others were motor vehicle collisions. So year-to-date again for 2014 was 5,407 responses. Next month we hope to have a presentation for a life-saving award. We're putting that together, but I will make sure I contact you for that.
Thank you very much.
Thank
for the
you. Have a
report.
good night.
Any questions for Rich? Anybody?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And now moving on to our regular agenda, PS1 is ordinance number 2088, repealing Article 6, removal and impounding of illegally parked vehicles of Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, and establishing and enacting Chapter 160, Towing. This is a motion to adopt ordinance number 2088, repealing Article 6, removal and impounding of illegally parked vehicles of Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, and establishing and enacting Chapter 160, Towing, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Staff or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. PS2, ordinance number 2090, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 7, Speed Limits Established. This is a motion to adopt ordinance number 2090, amending Chapter 156, Vehicles and Traffic, Article 2, Traffic Regulations, Section 7, Speed Limits Established, reducing the speed limits on Rockwell Road from Old Welsh Road to Edge Hill Road from 35 miles per hour to 30 miles per hour, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Commissioner Hecker.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. I just want to take a moment to thank Chief Kelly and Officer Freed for their work with us to address this issue. It's part of a broader approach to traffic and pedestrian safety on Rockwell Road. So my thanks to Officer Freed and Chief Kelly.
Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. Chief Kelly, I certainly understand why this is being done, but this is something that isn't normally done, and I would only request that before you take any more requests for speed reduction on other roads, that you really carefully study this to see if it truly makes a difference.
Fair enough.
Because we all have roads in all of our wards, and the traffic safety manager and the chief could be barraged with requests to reduce speeds. And it's obviously something we don't normally do because of PennDOT standards. So I'm just requesting that we thoroughly take a look at it, check the speeds, see if it truly makes a difference.
Commissioner, as you know, we try to do that on every case. And usually we go rigidly by the standards of PennDOT And on occasion, we've come across cases, very rarely, where we have felt that the totality of the circumstances required us to deviate from that slightly. And this is only a slight deviation, and it's one that we thought was merited based on all of the circumstances that came together. And I guarantee you, Commissioner, as far as I'm concerned, it'll be a rare case where we will find that to be appropriate to do. And it took a lot of time and a lot of hard work and a lot of reconsidering and working with the local commissioners to determine in my mind, as the final authority on that, too, that it was appropriate in this case, although rare. And so I'm with you 100%, Commissioner, and I assure you that we will continue to do that. As you know, our traffic safety manager, Freed, always gives us the exact right and appropriate decision on these things and what the regulations require. And we almost always go 100% by those. As we all know, there was a fatality at this location, and that, along with a number of other circumstances that came together to make us feel that it was an appropriate thing to agree to an exception, a minor exception in this one case.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from commissioners, staff, or audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS3 is ordinance number 2091, amending Chapter 156 Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking Regulations, Section 25. Parking prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, parking prohibited except certain hours, no stopping or standing. This is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2091, amending Chapter 156 Vehicles and Traffic, Article 3, Parking Regulations, Section 25, parking prohibited at all times, no parking between signs, no parking here to corner, parking prohibited except certain hours, no stopping or standing, for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on April 9th, 2015, and I so move.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any comments or questions from commissioners? Staff or audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS4 is ordinance number 2092, amending Chapter 155, Traffic Control, Article 1, Automated Red Light Enforcement System, Section 155-7, Duties of the Township of Abington. This is a motion to advertise ordinance number 2092, amending Chapter 155, Traffic Control, Article 1, Automated Red Light Enforcement System, Section 155-7, Duties of the Township of Abington, allowing a $35 cost of collection fee to be added to the $100 red light camera fine when the fine is referred to a third-party collection agency for adoption at the regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Commissioners on April 9th, 2015, and I so move. Have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Commissioner Sanchez?
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. We're comfortable that the $35 fee, is that permissible under law as far as, applicable interest rates, like the usury laws? I'm thinking, maybe it's different because it's a fee, but.
We are comfortable that the ordinance as written is both legal and enforceable. It also protects the township from any liability and places the proper responsibility for the collection of the debt onto a third-party collection agency whose actions are independent from the township. And we believe that everything in this ordinance protects the township and is enforceable.
So we're basically paying that, or the fine pays that company to collect it?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Can I just, I understand this, but I just want to make sure that everybody else understands this, that might be watching this, that this is just that this fee is not an additional fee being added to everybody's fines that gets, so can you just explain that a little bit?
This is a fee, and I think that Chief Kelly or Officer Freed would be better able to talk about how many notices get sent out. But this is the fee that gets added after you have ignored repeated notices and have neither responded nor paid your fine. When this needs to be sent to collection, that is when this $35 fee is being added. But there are ample notices that are sent beforehand. There are ample opportunities to pay the fine. And I think we're talking probably from start to finish, it's almost 3 months before you're going to be sent to collection. And again, I know that they can speak to this more, but there are multiple notices that are sent to the individual before this fee is assessed. This is not anything that comes back to the township. This is not anything that we're collecting. But this, as you can imagine, when you're sending this to a third-party collector, they need to get paid somehow, and that is what they're getting paid is based on this $35 fee. So the rest of the costs are distributed the way they should be.
Thank you. I just wanted everybody to be clear that we weren't now adding another $35 on everybody's fees. Any, do you have a question? Yes.
Thank you. Solicitor Isaac, can you explain a little bit about how we went about choosing, or how Municipal Collections of America was chosen to be our collections agency?
I cannot. That was not something that I was involved in picking. That was information that came to us from who we were working with at the police department.
Good evening, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. Yes, the collection agency was picked actually by the folks here in the room several months ago. We came and got the ordinance passed for it to go to collections. After 79 days, you actually get 3 notices from the collection company. After 79 days and no payment's been received, it gets forwarded to the collection company, which is the one before you here tonight. So they were put in place. In looking over the ordinance, it was brought up by not only our solicitor but by a representative of MCOA, is that there was nothing in there allowing them to pick that or collect that $35 fee. So at their suggestion, we developed the ordinance to collect that $35, which was passed on to our solicitor. He looked that over and found everything that was okay with it, and that's how we got to this point.
They suggested to us that we include a $35 fee into the ordinance.
Yeah, the $35 fee is to cover their work. Right. So that $35 fee that's collected is actually goes to the collection agency, and then the $100 they collect goes into our fund like it would if somebody normally paid the ticket.
Right. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
That answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Commissioner Hecker.
Thank you, Commissioner Schreiber. In the initial communication that goes out to someone who's been a violator, is there any language in there that says if you fail to pay after 79 days, this will be turned over to a collection agency, and you may be subject to a $35 additional fee?
Yes, there is something in there. I forget exactly how it's worded, but okay. there is notice, and again, they give you plenty of opportunity. They send a first, a second, and then a third notice before it gets sent out to collections.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd just also like to add, and just advise the rest of the board as well, that our traffic safety department is open to taking any problems that come up, any controversies, any conflicts. In other words, there's not just, like in most citations, it goes to the court and that's the only way it gets adjudicated. Because this is a totally different situation, it's not a criminal process, it's a civil process, it gives us a little bit more latitude in those. And in the cases where it's evident that it's inappropriate for that person to get a citation, then they take action to deal with it right then and there when there's a just cause. And they're very careful about that and that there's proof of it. But there was one just this last week where Officer Posey, person provided information. They were being rushed to the hospital to have a baby, and they made the right turn on red to go through the, after stopping, and they just adjudicated it right then and there. No need to go for anything else beyond that, as I'm sure the board would want us to do in a situation like that. So these aren't cases where it's in the process or someone has tried to get the thing resolved. This is a case where a person just does not respond in any shape or form, and after a while, as we all know, you get to a point where if you don't do something, then if there's no teeth to it at all, then you're just constantly sending out notices and accomplishing nothing in it. So that's why all the other places that we checked on do the same thing for the same reason.
Thank you, Chief. Commissioner Lucas.
It was hard to hear, but I think Officer Freed commented that you're sent 3 notices prior to getting the notice that you are being charged at $35, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And just one last housekeeping. On the ordinance in our books, 2092, the 3rd page says page 3 of 2. Just a minor. But before I signed it, I wanted to see if I get that corrected. Thank you.
That's the new math. That would be all the pages then, because it's 1 of 2, 2 of 2, 3 of 2.
Thank you. Commissioner Myers.
Thank you. If you spoke to this, forgive me. If a violator contacts us or either the first company or the collection company, and they're not able to pay the fine at that time or not able to pay the full amount, can a payment plan be worked out for them?
They don't actually develop a payment plan for you. What they do is they'll take whatever payment you can make, and they will continue to send notices to that person as long as they keep making payments. So as long as they're making payments monthly, they don't actually do a payment plan, but they accept whatever payment that comes in. And it's only if they stop making any payment at which time they'll start sending out the notices as far as being delinquent on the payment.
Okay.
Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. This has the potential to negatively impact an individual's credit rating?
Anytime
collections
anything is reported to a collection agency, that collection agency has the ability to report it to credit agencies, and so yes, it may have the effect of having a negative impact on someone's credit.
So as a follow-up to Commissioner Myers, if someone wants to pay, is unable to pay, or does a partial, is there any way that they could, would that be up to MCOA to determine, okay, we've communicated with you, we're not going to impact your credit negatively, or is there something that the township could do, or how would that work, or it's just up to the company?
I believe that once it is sent to collection, in order to maintain the separation of responsibilities, that it becomes at that point up to the collection agency as to what lawful means they will use to collect the debt. If that means reporting something to a collection agency, they would. I think if we begin to get into the process of altering that, then we're kind of crossing that wall with the collection agency, and I would not recommend that we do that. But I think, as Officer Freed has indicated, they don't, by not putting you into full-blown collection, but just continuing to send you notices, it would seem unlikely that they would then be reporting you to your credit bureau. And remember, we're not talking about $10,000 worth of fines that may take years and years to pay off. This is probably something that can be paid off in a relatively short period of time.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners, staff, or audience? Name and address for the record, please.
Raymond Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. First of all, I've been in collections for 50 years. That's what I did for a living. I haven't gotten run out of Dodge yet, but let me just address some things, because first of all, this is a small piece of a pie but it has ramifications, in my opinion, to being susceptible to violations of the FDCPA, Pennsylvania Debt Collection Practices Act. But I sent a communication out. I won't cover everything on it, but Municipal Collections of America, while they're not a member of the Better Business Bureau in Illinois, have 23 billing and complaint collection issues that were listed against them. 8 were closed in the last 12 months. Furthermore, they have 18 complaints listed on the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau website, which is available to be seen. 6 were listed, 6 of those 18 were listed in 2015. Municipal is a registered agency out of Illinois, and therefore they're required to have bond, $25,000, and also an agency license. The question is, when you engage an agency, one of the things you have to do is to make sure that they're paying their bond and they're renewing their license. And while, you know, it's a small piece of the pie, you have to do that. You know, you're obligated to make sure that the agency is paying what they're doing, even if they're in Illinois. My understanding of the FDCPA and Pennsylvania Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, that the amount that is expressly provided in the agreement of the $35 must be disclosed to the debtor and obligor of that debt. You can't arbitrarily say, well, I got $25 and I'm going to add that to a charge. And whether you adopt it in Abington, the enforceability is dependent upon what is disclosed in the agreement once that fine is levied and the individual that is being fined sees that in the language. I would also suggest that putting the amount and or the name of the agency may not be in the interest of the township. If you change the agency, then you have to change the ordinance again. If you change the amount, you're going to have to change the ordinance again. So my suggestion, and I'll read it very quickly, is additional fees and costs may be added to the outstanding balance as provided in written disclosure to the owner, obligor creating the debt. Said disclosure may contain additional collection pursuit through a third-party agency and or attorney representing the township and any additional costs permitted by law. That's generic, but it, you know, in my opinion, covers the township. If you're going to do an agency, I would hope that you get copies of the letters that they're going to use on your behalf, copies of when accounts are sent back to you, where's that information going, require that agency to notify any lawsuits filed against them, including any state or federal action, require the agency to remit weekly, not monthly, get copies of their data security policies and procedures, particularly in the event they lose power, and get copies of all letters that that agency is going to use on behalf of the township. That I won't cover a lot more that I sent, but if you have any questions, I'll be more than glad to answer them. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Bell. Thank you for sending that correspondence earlier today.
Thank you.
Would you like to address that?
Just a couple of things. The last issue I think that Mr. Bell raised is more of a policy issue that the board may want to consider. But 3 of the other issues raised by Mr. Bell, the one I think is valid. I think that if we're going to be employing a company and they need to be bonded and licensed, we want to make sure that they're keeping up with their bonding and their licensing. And so we should have that on file, and we should know when it expires, and we should get that information from them before it expires to make sure that they've renewed it. The other issue is I would recommend against while I think Mr. Bell has a point, I would recommend against the general language. I think it is better to know what company we are dealing with in this ordinance and to know the amount that we are dealing with. And if we are going to change either of those things next year or the year after, the township staff should bring that back to the 15 of you so you know who you're employing and how much you're charging. So I would advise against that general language. And last but not least, The federal courts in this area have not addressed the issue of whether or not these types of fines are considered debts under the Fair Debt and Practice Act, but federal courts throughout the United States have, and they have uniformly held that fines are not considered debts. So while Mr. Bell raises a good point about what we should be doing if they were debts, since they are not considered a debt, they are considered a fine, the FDCPA does not apply in this instance with regard to the collection of these fines.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments any of that from the commissioners?
May I just say one thing? I left this. If I can be of help to the police department or anyone, I'll be more than glad to. You might as well get it while the getting's good, because I'm getting older.
We appreciate your expertise in this.
Laura Lehman, Meadowbrook, and I wanted just to say I have heard from people who have had fines from the red lights. They're rather discouraged. In one case, for instance, it was a young man with a pristine driver's record, and he said that his action, he was over the line, he admitted it, and he, said he was due to pay the fine, and paid it, but he said normally a police officer would not have probably taken those actions, or possibly, and I don't even know on a moving violation whether you can issue a warning, but perhaps issued a warning instead of given a ticket. He certainly did avoid points and that kind of thing. So, being aware of those issues, the piece that's missing is a place where, as we're evaluating this, that we understand there's some place that we can send our comments if we feel that way, because we have the people who are doing the evaluation. He really has no way of knowing that you're soliciting his comments or where those. So I would really love to see, and I mentioned this before when the program was getting together, that we put some sort of inclusion, if it's a separate piece of paper or whatever in there, that says you may make comments as to how you feel about this program and this action, either anonymously, which would be ideal, or in some other way at this site or to this address, so that, and ideally so everybody could see it. Because I think we're operating in the same vacuum that we have people, we're giving them tickets, and we're deciding according to the statistics whether this is working or not. And the general feeling from the public, and as you know, there are states where they have backtracked on this, and it didn't all have to do with just the statistics. It had also to do with the fact that people thought that there was a lot of very unfair action going on, that the people who whiz through an intersection and cause an accident are still doing that, and the people who are getting the tickets are people that normally would not be causing a problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Staff or audience? Commissioners? Okay. Hearing none, let's vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. PS5 is the DARE program grant. Motion to authorize township officials to accept a grant from CAPT in the amount of $15,000 for the DARE program, and I so move.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any comments from commissioners? Staff or audience? Yes, Chief Kelly.
Madam Chair, I just wanted to make sure the board knew what was going on here, because it's a change that has occurred over the recent years. The state continues to reduce the amount of funding that comes in for the DARE program, and while the police department and school district are committed to continuing that because of the excellent results that we've had, it's getting to the point where there's been the funding has gotten down to the point where it's cutting into the programs. And most of you know that CAPT is the Citizens and Police Together organization, which is a group of organizations and citizens that support programs, primarily ones related to our youth. They're coming forward with this to enable us to continue those programs and those services to the students without having to come to the board and asking for additional funds to make up that difference. So I wanted to make sure that they do wonderful work for the township and for the police department, and they're supplying the money to allow this training to continue. And so I just wanted to make sure that the board knew that they were doing that and why they were doing that.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments from the audience? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Do we have any comments from staff or audience on public safety in general?
Laura Lehman, Bryant Lane in Meadowbrook, and I have brought to this board many issues of public safety. Was recently promised by our manager that he would get back to me on one of the ones that I found most mind-boggling and a very large kind of gap. I still have not had an answer to that, and so my concern, public safety-wise, is when residents can't get answers in that way. It is a public safety issue for all of us, and the issue in this particular case, which I mentioned, was the detective who had said to me that he didn't know the picture of the burglaries and crime in my neighborhood. Said he would get back to me, did not. Wrote to Chief Kelly. Chief Kelly directed me to Mr. Lefevre. Mr. Lefevre didn't get back to me when I resubmitted that email to Mr. Lefevre, who'd been copied on it the first time. Then in a phone call, Mr. Lefevre answered another question but didn't answer that one. I asked again, would he get me the answer? He said again he would get the answer. I stand before you today still without that answer. That is a public safety issue.
You have a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Schreiber. Actually, I have that information in front of me this evening, and I was going to give it to Ms. Lehman after the meeting tonight.
Thank you very much.
Say that, I'm sorry.
He has information for you after the meeting.
After the meeting?
Tonight.
So the issue here
do you have another issue that you want to address?
I hope you're recognizing that nobody should have to jump through all of those hoops, okay? And I have had to do it.
Ms. Lehman, do you have another issue? This one's been resolved now.
Yes, well, not yet. It hasn't.
Well,
I stand before you, and it still is not resolved.
Okay, so he has given you a comment of what
it
so
could.
Can you,
it could be resolved.
Do you have another issue that you would
right
like to address this evening?
Yes, it could be resolved for the public, and the public actually should know the answer to that as well. And so I stand before you, and it is still not resolved. And yes, another issue along those lines was, and after I mentioned it at a recent meeting, I was pretty well dressed down for disrespecting somebody. That was the emergency manager, Mr. McEnany. And I will tell you, it was Mr. McEnany's own words.
Mr. McEnany is not even here this evening.
He doesn't need to defend himself.
Ms.
We're
Lehman,
talking about an issue of, let me just tell you, this is public safety. When
I know, and you are not
you,
talking about a public safety issue. You are maligning somebody, and I will not have that during my meeting.
By reading his own words?
He is not here this evening. We already discussed this at the last meeting. If you have a public safety issue...
Did you get a copy of his own... Did the public safety director from the board get a copy of his letter with his stump the chump and I avoided all the landmines comments? Because if that's maligning him, he wrote it and he
I just said to you, Ms.
himself.
Lehman, that he is not here this evening. If you have a public safety issue that you would like to discuss this evening, we will entertain that. You will not
Did you address it since I asked you before to address it?
Any staff members here, we will not malign.
Did you address it before and get back to me and tell me?
No, I did not.
Okay, that's a public safety issue. If we have
Okay,
people
well,
in high floors.
We will have to agree to disagree on that. I do not see that as a public safety issue. And it doesn't sound like you have any public safety issues to discuss this evening.
The people at the top floors of the apartments still don't
evening.
have any of those measures in place.
Thank you for your comments this evening.
So then, let me just see if we have. The other thing that I've asked rather regularly is to have the emails pushed out that are urgent emails. So we have, for instance, there's a burglary at a bank. And when the police get a sketch, it goes out to some limited circulation or to newspapers, but as I have mentioned before, each of you has an email list with maybe 2,000 to 4,000 people on it, somewhere in between there, possibly. And I have a list with innumerable numbers of people on it. Those particular measures are not being used to push out emergency information. And I don't understand why, and I'm still asking for, I'm waiting for an answer on that, and cannot understand why, when that, for instance, might solve a crime, getting it to as many people as possible, why we're not doing it. And still do not have an answer on that. So, do you have an answer for me on that?
I do not.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. And so when I have mentioned, for instance, that in the documents that I told you I requisitioned, there were very serious safety concerns, there seems to be no, and you are a legislator who can write laws if they need to be written.
Ms. Lehman,
yes.
Is this a different issue now?
This is an issue
Okay,
of,
you're going to have to wrap this up.
This is an issue of, if there's missing legislation,
Ms.
who's
Lehman?
going to
Ms. Lehman,
write it?
Excuse me. You've now brought up 4 different things. Is this a new thing you're bringing up? Because you know
Yes.
you're way over your 3 minutes.
Yes.
So why don't you save that for the next public safety meeting then? Since you're way over and you keep talking.
Let me
you're going
ask
from one
you
subject-
to address it. It doesn't need to be addressed in this forum. Let me ask you to address it
Okay.
after the meeting.
Okay.
All right? Please contact me, and I will lay it out for you, and we'll figure out if there's legislation needed or if somebody is not following the legislation that exists.
I'm not necessarily going to agree to do that, but thank you for your time.
Madam Chairman?
Yes.
Speak for a moment. I think there needs some things need to be clarified. Certainly, if any resident in this township has a complaint about any staff member, whether in the police department, public works, the administration, they have different avenues. The first avenue, which we keep preaching, is to contact your commissioner or contact the township manager. Everyone can do that. Anyone can do that. Additionally, I have noticed that the police department have been putting things, pictures of people that they're looking for, I guess suspects, whatever. They've been using social media quite a bit, especially Facebook. So it's out there. And I understand, I think there was a robbery or a burglary, and they were able to identify the person. They got something like 35 or more hits on a picture and giving the person's name, who happened to live in Abington, I believe. So certainly, the police department knows what they're doing, they know how to do it, and we can make suggestions, but let's let them do their job.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any other comments from anybody? Hearing none, we are adjourned.
I'd like to call to order the Public Affairs Committee meeting for the Township of Abington for March 4th, 2015. Can we have a roll call, please? Here.
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 Commissioner Spiegelman is excused tonight. I'll be sitting in his place. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the February 4th, 2015 Public Affairs Committee meeting. I so move.
Second.
Any updates or questions from commissioners? No? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to call on Parks and Recreation Director Doug Wendell for a report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to thank all of the Abington fire companies for responding to the Rochester Community House last Wednesday, I believe it was. Every one of them came out, and the fire, which was actually fairly minor, was dealt with rather quickly so that there was minimal damage. It was mostly smoke damage. There was some slag that when they were cutting the old fire escape steps off with the torch, the slag got on the lintel. It's wood, probably over 100 years old, and smoldered for quite a while before anybody noticed anything. But as soon as they did, the fire companies were called. They were all there. They put it out, and the The contractor who's working on the building has made most of the repairs already, with some of the minor cleaning and things to still be done, but everything turned out rather well considering.
That's great.
So,
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wendell. I'd like to get started with our formal agenda. PA1, Resolution Number 15-013, designating the Township of Abington as a National Audubon Bird Town. This is a motion to approve Resolution Number 15-013, designating the Township of Abington as a National Audubon Bird Town. We have a few people in the audience tonight who are going to go through the background of this. We have Greta Brunschweiler, the Director of the Briarbush Nature Center, Jen Sherwood, the Chair of the Environmental Advisory Council, Dr. Lee Altadonna, and a couple of Abington Senior High School students, and I'm going to call on Greta Brunschweiler.
You took away my job. I was going to introduce
Oh, I'm sorry.
everybody.
You can I don't know their names. You can introduce the students.
Okay. So these two young ladies, Rachel Rodden and Lexi Lee Ita, are the co-chairs of Abington Earth Serve Club at Abington High School, and they're going to actually give the presentation.
Oh, great.
So, ladies.
Welcome. Can you introduce yourselves so we know who is who?
Yeah, sorry. Hi, my name is Rachel Rodden.
I'm Lexi Leita.
And we are the co-presidents of EarthServe at the senior high school.
EarthServe is a club at the senior high school that is dedicated to improving the environment. This year we are dedicated to making Abington an official bird town.
So we decided this year to get involved with creating Abington as a bird town, because that was something we decided we were passionate about. When I was little, a bird flew into the window. My brother and I, nursed it back to health. So we are very passionate about this, and we hope that the township as a whole will be passionate about it as well. So to begin, I'm going to explain what a bird town is. So a bird town is a partnership between Audubon and a municipality, and it recognizes the municipalities for their support of the environment, and it promotes conservation to create a healthier, more sustainable environment for both birds and people.
A culture of conservation. A bird town makes efforts to create a culture of conservation where everyone is a potential steward of nature in their own backyard.
So the criteria which Abington has to become a bird town are as followed. We established Briarbush Nature Center over 50 years ago. We established the Abington EIC in 1974. We maintain over 424 acres of public parks. Audubon's Crosswicks Wildlife Sanctuary is located in Rydal, and that is pictured on the bottom right. And the Pennypack Watershed has been designated by Audubon as a Pennsylvania Important Bird Area.
There are several benefits of a bird town designation. It recognizes Abington Township's record of commitment to the environment. It supports programs by the Abington Environmental Advisory Council, Briarbush, EarthServe, Audubon, and other partners, and encourages efforts toward a more sustainable natural environment with healthier backyards, schools, and parks.
And we would like to recognize our partners. So that would be the Abington Township Environmental Advisory Council, Briarbush Nature Center, our club, which is EarthServe, Windcode Audubon Society, and other partners we wish to seek in the future.
Our initial bird town goals are to promote the Abington Township's bird town designation, which would be to install bird town signs like in the front, and expand the bird town partnerships. Also to encourage residents to take the Healthy Yard Pledge. And then the next step would to encourage residents to register properties in the Bird Habitat Recognition Program. And lastly, conduct activities and events that support stewardship and a sustainable environment.
And for any additional information, you can go to pa.audubon.org/birdtown. Thank you.
You good?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. That was very well done. Any questions or comments from the committee?
So if a resident wants to become, I forget what it was called, like a partner or something like that, they can go on that website and it'll tell them what to do for their healthy yard or whatever.
A healthy yard pledge, yeah. A healthy yard pledge is pretty much just a signature saying that you will respect the environment. But the step after that, which is a bird habitat recognition program, is actually something where I believe you can purchase a sign and declare your yard a bird-friendly backyard.
So where do they learn how to make their yard a bird-healthy yard environment?
I believe that is, it's on the website.
Okay.
But also, Briarbush and Mercer will be giving programs on that.
Thank you.
Anybody from the board? No? Lexi and Rachel, that was very well done. Thank you very much. Any comments from staff or audience? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. Congratulations.
It's a nice-looking sign, too.
Are you guys going to take the sign with you, or are we keeping that here?
We're not designated, I don't think yet.
You got to wait?
Non-designation, you get 5 of them for the township.
Great.
Yeah, they have to go home.
They have to.
I don't think so.
Thank you. Moving on to PA2, Business Integrity Policy. This is a motion to adopt the attached Business Integrity Policy, which establishes guidelines to ensure all business conducted by the township observes the highest standards of honesty and integrity. And I'm going to call on Township Manager Michael LeFevre to give some background information.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Commissioners may recall Monday evening at the Public Works Committee meeting, there was an agenda item related to the Noble Bridge reconstruction with PennDOT. And as part of that motion, the township committed money for decorative sidewalks and ornamental lighting to be incorporated into the design. PennDOT now requires any time it enters into an agreement with the local municipality that municipality have in place a written sexual harassment policy, which we do have and have had for a number of years, but also a business integrity policy. So they supplied the township with a sample business integrity policy. We turned it over to the township solicitor's office, who has reviewed it. And this basically deals with the township procurement process. It's guidelines that we're currently following to the T. It doesn't add any additional burdens or any other restrictions on the township. It's basically a process we're currently following. But it'll formalize those processes to the satisfaction of PennDOT.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Sanchez?
It didn't look like there was anything additional that we, it's sort of like follow the law, right? And we tend to do that, or
we currently
try to do that.
Doing so in the future.
Right. So it was just, it's just strange. I just wanted to make this an odd requirement by PennDOT, because you would think that that would just be assumed, or otherwise you would be.
PennDOT doesn't like to assume anything. They like to make sure that everything is written down so there's no question. So very often when you're doing a PennDOT project, you have to adopt their form, business integrity policies, sexual harassment policies, things along those lines. Part of it is because of the federal funding aspect of it, which requires that all of these things be written down as a stated policy, even if you're already following it, even if it's already part of the law, even if it's already in 2 or 3 other ordinances or policies within your township. They want to have something specific, mostly because of the federal funding aspect.
That makes sense. Kind of uniformity. Got it. Thank you.
Any other board members? Commissioner Hecker?
I was just wondering if there's something specific about this project that triggered it. This isn't the first time that the township's partnered with PennDOT over the years, and is this a recent practice on their part?
I understand it's a recent requirement, and this would apply to any agreement PennDOT's entering into with the local municipality.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Any comments from staff? Audience? Good question. Name and address for the record, please.
Laura Lehman, Meadowbrook. I just wonder if, obviously there are many, many facets of the law that cover your business integrity. Quite a few of them are mentioned in this specifically, but others are not. Doesn't that, it seems to me that confuses things almost when you restate, here's our business integrity policy, when actually, as Commissioner Sanchez said, it's the law already that you have to follow. And I believe there's probably other ones there that aren't all included in there. So does that confuse things at all, do you know?
I don't think it confuses things.
So, okay. All right. So I guess I don't understand that either. It doesn't seem to make sense, unless they wanted to list, specifically these laws and then say also and others that apply. I think it does say that in there somewhere. But, it does seem weird. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Sure. Commissioner Jones?
Mr. Solicitor, to that point, a lot of times when you do, for various entities, especially federal grants, you have to sign a statement of assurances. Would this be similar, that you're just almost assuring that you're already doing these things, that is pretty targeted at what they're looking for, that does not necessarily include everything?
It is. This policy is something that you get from PennDOT. As you're indicating, when you're going certain federal grants, they provide you with the forms. It's what you want to sign. These are forms that have been reviewed and vetted by whatever agency you may be dealing with. In this instance, this is a policy that has been reviewed and vetted by PennDOT. There really isn't any opportunity to change this other than putting in Abington Township, where it sort of is a fill in the blank. This is what PennDOT is telling you. You have to follow, and you have to sign, and you have to adopt.
Comments from the audience? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. All opposed? The ayes have it. PA3, TD Bank Grant for Green Streets. This is a motion to approve the acceptance of the TD Green Streets Grant in the amount of $20,000. No match is required, but this is a reimbursement grant. Grant expenses will be paid for out of an account that will be set up at a later date by the Finance Department and then reimbursed at the end of the project after a final report has been submitted and approved. And I'm going to call in again Manager Michael Lefevre to give some background.
If you don't mind, I'll defer to Parks Superintendent.
Sure.
Greta was here.
Greta. Someone else.
Greta took off.
Who will defer to Manager Lefevre?
Yeah.
Actually, it says
it's
it was applied for by the Shade Tree
Commission.
Yeah, it's a shade tree.
As it says in the description, it's basically a grant that they're going for that will be repaid to us right after it's all been expended.
Right.
And the Shade Tree Commission would be the ones to be administrating the process.
Right.
So
Cut and dry.
it's pretty much what it says there. Yeah, I mean,
Dr. Stevens applied for it last year and again this year. Yeah.
Okay.
It's for trees along Roslyn Valley and corridor, and she applied. This is the second year. Didn't get it the first year. She got it this time, which is wonderful. And she's worked very hard on it, and we appreciate Dr. Stevens very much for doing this.
And the application was attached to, so that gives all the specifics.
Sure. Okay. Any other comments from commissioners? Commissioner Placido?
If the final report isn't approved, then are we out of the money? We won't be paid back?
More than likely, if the final report has any issues, they'll discuss that with the Shade Tree Commission, and then they'll work out whatever is not done. But the Shade Tree Commission is already very aware of what needs to be done. I don't think it's all that onerous. That they should be able to complete the project without a lot of difficulty. I'm sure it's just going to be a matter of producing the documents showing where you spent your money and what you spent your money on and those kinds of things. And Dr. Stevens has done this many times, so I'm sure she's going to have absolutely no problem with complying with any of the requirements.
Thanks.
Any other comments from staff? Audience? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. PA4, Deer Hunt in Carebrook. A motion to approve controlled hunts in the Carebrook Nature Study Area by Abington Deer Management for the entire season from September 19th, 2015 to January 23rd, 2016. Signs will be posted along the perimeter of the area, noting that the area will be closed inclusively for the dates noted above. We'll call on Commissioner. I keep calling you Commissioner.
Second.
I'm promoting you. I need a second. That's right.
Second.
Thank you. It's been seconded, moved and seconded. Call on Director of Parks and Recreation, Doug Wendell.
Thank you, Sharon. This is a continuation of our request. We've done this for many years, and I thought Ron was going to be here, but I guess he didn't have the opportunity to come. We do have the president of Abington Deer Management here, but the fact is that the deer, if you look at the reports, most of the deer were hit along the Meadowbrook area, Meadowbrook Road area, Valley Road, Cox Road, and all those streets that were down further north. But they travel up along through that corridor, and then a lot of times will cross the railroad tracks. And the only real place that we have as a township to intercept them is in Carabrook. This year, this past season, ADM did not remove any deer from there. We know there are deer in there. I had cameras in there that I could see them, but when the hunters were there, they weren't where the hunters were. And being wild animals, that does happen occasionally. And we have to follow the rules and regulations of the Game Commission, so we can only hunt during daylight hours and in a way that meets their regulations. Where Philadelphia, they have a hunt where they use sharpshooters at night over bait piles, and they also pay about $200 per deer to remove them. ADM does not charge us anything at all, and they are insured in case there's any liability issues.
So even if they collect no deer, we don't pay anything?
Correct.
Okay.
And if they do remove any deer, we do not pay anything.
Okay.
All the deer are either used by the hunters or given to other people who want venison.
Right. Okay.
So nothing goes to waste.
Thank you.
Do we have a vote? I'm sorry. Didn't even raise my hand here. Did we have a vote earlier this year on deer hunting also? Can we
no, there wasn't a vote. I think there was a discussion. And I remember when Commissioner Klein was here, he had concerns too that if Commissioner Klein had said that he had some concerns regarding whether or not the numbers would go down as a result of the hunting. Unfortunately, this year, it's not something we can really correlate because there were no deer removed. However, if you don't do the hunting, then you can be assured that there will be deer that will, the numbers will increase because the deer will increase. But, again, that's...
So it was just a discussion when we had it earlier
yes,
in the fall?
That was a couple of months ago.
Okay.
And do we have any idea the size of the herd or herds?
I don't know, maybe Luke can give us an idea of the number of deer that he's seen in there. Because on the cameras I've seen at least 10 or 12 different deer on the cameras in Carabrook, but you have that entire corridor on Valley Road where you have large private properties all the way up and beyond Morley Road. So
sure.
The number of deer that you see, because I know that ADM has some private residences in that area, and Luke could probably speak to some of the numbers that they've seen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
In addition to Carabrook, we have quite a few properties in Meadowbrook and Huntington Valley, and we've done very well this year, which is really why there probably wasn't as many in there this year. But because of the nature of deer, they're transient. This year also we had some trespassers in there. I think Mr. Wendell was told for not against deer hunting, but I believe juveniles or someone in there drinking beer. They cut some of the straps on our stands, so it may have hampered our efforts, but not adjacent. Our adjacent properties we've done very well. And the last thing I'll say, I think a lot of them went to Hillside Cemetery.
And they're over there.
If you all know what I mean. Like, for instance, Sunday there was 47 doe there right off of Susquehanna Road by Roslyn School. So
47?
47.
Wow, okay.
Keep in mind, deer herds for a square mile should be between 3 and 8 deer, period.
So that's more?
Way more.
I'm sorry, can you
So
just put your name?
we've done a good job.
Can I just get your name and name and address for the record? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask you that.
Louis Klool, 2442 Avondale, Roslyn.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners, staff, audience? Name and address for the record, please.
Raymond Bell, 2076 Parkview Avenue. I just have two questions. One is, are these accidents more prevalent at night than during the day?
I can't answer that because Ron can answer that. All I have are the actual numbers
Okay.
of when, where they occurred. But more than likely, deer are nighttime movers and eaters, so that's probably when it happened.
Is there any way we can move the deer instead of killing them?
That's a question that's constantly asked, and trap and transfer is not usually very successful. You can check with the Game Commission; they'll be happy to provide you with information. The other thing that's been tried again is birth control. The birth control again, now you're introducing more chemicals into the natural world, and the other thing is that you can't guarantee that you're going to be able to introduce the birth control to that particular deer for the number of times it needs to happen, because they're not always where you are, and you have hunt down one particular deer, so they're not going to do it 3 or 4 times.
Maybe if the deer shot back, we'd stop.
Maybe the deer will just learn not to jump in front of the car.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments from the audience? Name and
Laura
address.
Lehman, Meadowbrook, and I never fail to weigh in on this one because this one hurts my heart. There was a very cogent letter to the editor in the Times Chronicle probably about a month ago. He had watched a beautiful herd bed down in the leaves in the back of his house, and somebody shot one of them. He watched the poor thing bleeding out, and then, of course, it ran off to bleed out elsewhere. The arrow hunting has, although I'm told by some that it's humane, I've heard many witnesses that it is not terribly humane, so I'm opposed to that. I also would rather see some chemicals, which humans also choose to add to their environment. I'd rather see chemicals than the kind of cruelty that allows. So thank you, just weigh against it.
Thank you for your comment. Anybody else in the audience? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. Moving on to PA 5, the controlled hunt in Alvethorpe Park. This is a motion to approve a one-day controlled hunt to take place in Alvethorpe Park during the 2015-2016 season. And we'll turn it over to Director of Parks and Recreation, Doug Wendell, one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Again, we haven't had a hunt in Alvethorpe for about the last 7 or 8 years, mainly because we had a number of hunts from 1997 up until 2007, and they were relatively successful in removing deer from the park. The last hunt, only 3 deer were removed, where the first hunt we had about 13. There are a number of properties on that surround the park that the deer come from. They're not just living in Alvethorpe Park. They come in and out of Alvethorpe pretty regularly. We have had calls from neighbors of the park who have had issues with deer in their yard, and while a hunt in Alvethorpe would probably do something to help, it really is, again, back to the Abington Deer Management, who hunt on private property, that can help to remove even more deer, or at least remove more of the extra deer. So it's a one-day hunt, and it usually runs from before dawn until about 1 o'clock, and then the park is completely closed. We do have fencing all around, and it's patrolled. We usually have assistance from the police department. I'm on the grounds going around and making sure things are going properly. Again, we've never had any accidents. Everything's always worked well.
Sure.
So it seems like with the uptick in accidents, as you see in the report, and the complaints from the neighbors, that spurred me to put it on the board action tonight.
Great, thank you. Any comments from commissioners on the committee? Commissioner Jones.
Thank you. A couple things. First of all, I do live very close to the park, and I have a number of deer that, oddly enough, I've seen the difference where one night I was out and I was actually able to get actually closer than you and I are now, and it shouldn't happen. They shouldn't. Maybe they like me. I don't know. Maybe a short list. But here's a couple of concerns that I do have. The first would be the date that this is going to happen. It will be notified of that. in advance?
Yes. Before we come up with a date, I'm not sure what Mr. Kluhl would be interested in doing because we have to get enough people together to do it, but probably sometime in the fall, maybe the late fall. And at the point of time we make a decision of the date, we would certainly make sure all the commissioners were aware of it. And then typically we've announced it to the neighbors. There's Pondview Circle, the neighbors on, I guess, Forest Avenue, and the neighbors on Fox Chase Road.
Or Harbor all day.
And, yeah, right. And so just so they're aware of it, the park is closed that day and it's locked, and we'll have signs up saying that in advance of the hunt. So it'll be well made. It'll be made well aware. Everybody will be well aware of what we're doing before we do it.
Thank you.
This is bow hunting too.
It's strictly only bow hunting from stand, so that all the hunters will be 10 to 15 feet in the air, and we'll be shooting down at the ground. There have never been any accidents, either people falling out of trees or shooting the wrong thing or anything like that. It's always been safe. And again, like I said, the Abington Deer Management has a liability policy, which I don't believe ever has been utilized. So they're very safe and very professional.
Thank you.
Have there ever been any close calls of people trying to break into the park because they're used to using it for different recreational activities, or is that pretty well blocked off?
Well, we have the fences. The last time we had the hunt in 2007, there were two incidences. Both were handled very quickly by the police. One was an individual about 20 years old that climbed over the fence. It was before we have the fence now, which is really very difficult to climb. We had a chain link fence. He climbed over the fence and said to the police officer that spoke to him that he was there to play golf. But if the gates are all closed, you're not playing golf. And then we had an elderly gentleman, although I should be careful since I'm almost the same age as he was, but he had his young granddaughter, who was probably about 4 years old, who came in from the meeting house side, where on the Jenkintown Road side where the meeting house is.
Right.
That was not closed off. And I had police tape all over from the top to the bottom. You had to actually push the tape out of the way to get in. He entered with his 4-year-old granddaughter. I saw him before he got 10 feet inside the fence, and I explained what was going on and that he couldn't come in, and he argued with me quite a bit, and I said, if you continue to come in, I'm going to have to call the police and have you escorted out. Said some rather unkind things to me, and said something to his granddaughter, indicating that I was a very mean person, and then he took his granddaughter and left. But that was the only incident. Unlike Larmer, which is unfenced and rather open,
right.
We typically do not have that kind of interaction.
Right. Okay. Great. Thank you.
So it would be safe to say that your list is now shorter than mine?
It gets shorter every day.
We'll make a club.
Or I mean, it depends which way you're going. People that don't like me, sometimes that list gets longer.
Combine.
Okay.
Any other comments from commissioners, staff? Oh, sorry.
Thanks.
Commissioner Myers.
I think it's important to note that Mr. Kluhl, for the newer commissioners, was a police officer with our police department for how many years?
39.
A mere 39 years. And certainly, if anyone knows about safety, it's a retired police officer from this department.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Any other comments from staff or audience? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Opposed.
One opposed. PA 6, Resolution Number 15-012, authorizing the disposition of certain parks and recreation office records. This is a motion to adopt Resolution Number 15-012, authorizing the disposition of certain parks and recreation office records as set forth in Exhibit A, and I so move.
Second.
Any comments from Director Wendell?
Sure. I mean, they're just basically very old applications, job applications with personal information on them and registration forms from programs. And so rather than just throw them in the trash, we're going to have them shredded, and we need to request that it happen.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners on the subcommittee? From the board, staff, audience?
Laura Lehman, could I ask, could I view them before they get disposed of?
Well, that's something I'd ask the board to rule on, because basically they're just registrations for programs with names and addresses, and sometimes there's social security numbers on job applications and things like that. That's the bulk of it.
I can agree to leave those out. I mean, that'd be fine. You could just, leave those document.
I'd actually turn this over to the solicitor. This is this in any way related to a right
Someone would have to file a right-to-know request.
to see applications?
To see these records. And then a determination would have to be made as to whether or not these are public records.
That's beyond the scope of us.
That's the determination that we make in conjunction with the manager's office.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
The right to be sent to the right-to-know officer, and then...
what I'd like to do is to do it without a lot of, causing the township a lot of work. But to do it so maybe we can talk about what's, a way that I can see some of the things that are there without.
No, you have to file a right-to-know request.
Yes, okay. That will make more work, but okay.
Have we ever done anything like that? I'll open that up to the board.
Did you say it was employment records?
Applications.
Like applications and things?
Some are registration forms of residents who have been in our programs with names, addresses, and telephone numbers.
And social security numbers?
Some of them? That would be our employment records, our township applications, like for the pool applications and things like people who work for us in the pools, or even full-time people who left.
Yeah, I guess I had thought that personnel records were...
They probably would not be considered public documents, or they'd be considered one of the exceptions listed in the right-to-know law that we would not have to turn over.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Any other comments from...
Solicitor, if at some point there's John Q. Citizen, and we were to release those records without a right to know, and let's say I found out, my information got out, and there was some type of identity theft that may or may not be related to the two, but would the township potentially be liable?
The township could have some potential liability if it releases personal information, if it doesn't follow its proper protocol. If it happens by mistake, if there's an open record request that encompasses thousands of documents and something...
Saying without the open record request.
Right. Oh, without that. Oh,
did it without the open record?
Without question. Without question. If you're releasing private personal information without making the requester follow the proper protocol, fill out the proper forms, the township could be open to some liability.
Thank you.
Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. PA 7, bid award sandblasting of the Penn Bryn and Crestmont pools. This is a motion to accept the lowest responsible bid of New Age Corporation in the amount of $88,800 for the sandblasting and painting of both the Penn Bryn and Crestmont pools. Funding for this project will come from the 2014 capital account number 07-24-800-7535. The total budget for this project is $95,000, and we'll call on Director Wendell one more time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had 8 people show up at the mandatory bid meeting. Of those 8, 4 sent in bids, and of those 4, New Age was the lowest. As you see on the bid tab, the lowest was $88,800, and the largest was like $215,000, which I don't know what they were looking at when they saw that. Anyway, the New Age, I've checked their references. They actually did work at the school district, and I spoke to Steve Sale about it, and Steve was very complimentary. He said that they did a very difficult job because they had to grind things by hand, where normally, like in the pool, it's way open, where this was stairwells, and they did a very good job. He was very happy with them, and they worked hard and did a great job for them, so I'm pretty confident they'll be a good fit for us.
Great, thank you. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Oh, we get a second on that?
Second.
Sorry. Thank you, Commissioner Shriver. So that had moved and seconded. Any questions or comments from commissioners? Staff? Audience? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. PA 8, Star Community Rating System. This is for information only. This is a presentation by the Township Environmental Advisory Council on their interest in participating in the Star Community Rating System on local sustainability, the cost of which to be funded from existing EAC balances. And I'll turn it over to Khaki Evans.
Good evening. As you know, our EAC in the Township Code has several charges, to recommend a community environmental program to undertake environmental tasks as requested by the governing body, and to recommend plans and programs to the appropriate agencies. So while the EAC, we put a lot of energy into what we do, but really at this point we need a framework of best practices of how to do a fully sustainable program. We want to demonstrate results. And to meet this challenge, what the EAC has been doing is we've been looking at sustainability frameworks both on an international, a national, and a local scale. And we're looking for something that uses metrics such as service, cost, and quality. What I mean by service is on time, all the time, at the highest justifiable cost, at the highest justifiable quality, at the lowest reasonable cost. So the purpose of a sustainability program would be, first of all, we have to learn. We've never done this before. We want to look at what's out there and what's best. We also need a framework to focus our efforts, and we also want to think in mind, you know, to help the township get funding if we were to need funding for future sustainable outcomes and local actions. And the one we came up with this is STAR Communities. We feel that this is something that will take us to sustainability and beyond. So what's a sustainable community? Part of a sustainable community is also being active, engaging the community, being inspiring, being responsible, showing that all the institutions in your community, all the key players are working together, that we're building for the future. We're not spending today to deplete what we will have tomorrow. And the STAR Community Rating System measures current outcomes and plans, but it also provides us a path to a sustainable future. So a sustainable community also is a healthy environment, a strong economy, and it always is about the well-being of communities. Okay? And the rating system, as I said, is an active roadmap and a measuring system. So what we like about this, it was built by and for local governments. It was to answer the type of questions that municipal leaders were saying. You know, how do we measure it? What does it mean? How do we pick from these measurements? We want to be transparent. We want to be accountable. We also, you know, where we shine, we want national recognition. We also want to build and strengthen partnerships. And when you look at the dimensions that I'll show you tonight, you'll understand more about this. In terms of the development time frame, this was originally conceived in 2007. Green Build is the annual conference that the U.S. Green Building Council has every year. I happen to be an accredited professional by the U.S. Green Building Council, so I'm very comfortable in terms of how U.S. Green Building Council has a consensus program. They use key players. In 2008, they moved on more with the League of Cities, with ICLEI, which is about sustainable communities. And 2011, they used the STAR framework. STAR Communities is a independent nonprofit organization. And they started administering the rating system. They did a beta testing of it with over 30 communities in 2012. And in 2013, the first community became certified. These are the communities on top. They're mostly large, but some small communities. Cranberry Township, Pennsylvania was involved. And from that beta testing, they were able to see what worked and where they needed to revamp. These are at the bottom of the screen are the affiliates. So you have, you know, several prestigious foundations such as Kresge. You have different universities. You have different cities. And I'm very happy to tell you that I think the timing is so right for us to do this because Penn State is about to become an affiliate, all right? And they're going to be doing sustainability programs on their Abington campus, their Malvern campus, and on their main campus. So it helps cities and counties set a clear goal or path for sustainability with helpful tools to measure progress. It's also the first comprehensive framework and certification plan. And, you know, what's the value of certification? It would demonstrate our commitment to sustainability. It would help us, if we were to rate high enough, achieve national recognition. It also helps us gain competitive advantage and attract funding. For instance, the William Penn Foundation is now in talks with STAR Communities about them using it. And we see this as the future, that when communities want to get funding or want to be attractive to bond ratings, that they're going to be asking in the future, are you STAR rated? So we want to get a jump on this. This is fairly new, but we think the timing is really right. It also, as I said, increases transparency through its SWOT analysis. and it helps build and strengthens partnerships. And who's eligible to participate? You have to be a city and municipality. It can't be Penn State, Abington. It's got to be us, okay? So here's a map of who's doing it right now. The green stars are communities that have been certified, and the orange mean they're in the process or they're looking at the rating tool. And this is also looking at, in the Northeast, you have the District of Columbia. I mean, Philadelphia is a participating community, but as I'll get to later, they have a very mature framework at this point. But in talking to them, they feel that for a community such as ours that want to start out and be on the path, that this is an excellent tool. Here you look at what are these 5-star communities. Northampton at the top is a city of 28,000, so it can be small, it can be large. You see a lot, most of these are larger than us. And the rating system framework, there are 7 goal areas. So the built environment, it's your buildings, your climate and energy, it's your economy and jobs, it's your education, arts, and community, it's your equity and empowerment, it's your health and safety, and it's your natural systems. A third of the measurements have to do with health alone. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about economic development because there's a lot of economic development, and that is so important to the success of our township. So the concepts are, for instance, having a campaign for getting people to buy locally to strengthen us. They also look at measurements. Are we adding new businesses? Are we putting our money locally? Okay. Are we being reliant? Are we doing workforce readiness? And there's also some overlap. Workforce readiness is another measure that's part of the education. So it's 7 goals. It's 44 objectives. You can either get points through the outcomes, and the outcomes are definite thresholds. For instance, do 93% or more of your kids in your public school district, do they graduate high school? Are 85% of your third grades reading at or above proficiency? And if you don't meet, like a city of Philadelphia, for instance, wouldn't meet that, then you can also do through local action. So the fact that we have a volunteer planning commission, the fact that we have a volunteer zoning board, the fact that we have a volunteer economic development committee, and so on. The fact that we are the only volunteer fire department in Pennsylvania that's accredited. I mean, these are all really big, important things that are getting us there. So how can our community use STAR? Cities use it the evaluation measures can be adopted into the general plans and the annual reports, but more so in looking at the technical guide that we're using, it's just full of best practices from communities. So for instance, when I looked at Tacoma, Washington site, there were things in there I had no idea existed, even though I'm a green building person myself. There's something called Green Roads that was developed by a university. You can get your roadways actually green rated. Are you using asphalt, reusing asphalt again? Are you using even permeable sidewalks? I mean, things that I didn't know existed. So, and that's a free service. So that's just an example of something that we might want to do. We have to be strategic, but it's really about involving the community and being very transparent to the community. These are what mayors are saying. So the mayor of Northampton, that was the first 5-star community, it's also a way to let the residents, taxpayers, and businesses and investors and community partners know that we're on the right track. From Tacoma, Washington, the mayor there is weighing in that it's a way for the city to assess their progress. It also helps identify gaps and holds the city accountable for improving the quality of life for residents. In Indianapolis, they look at it as a physical for their city. And on the local front, we did some checking to say, how can Abington fit in, because we wanted to do our due diligence. And this is a picture of Alex Dews. He's the former manager of sustainability. He was the contact. About a month ago, he took on becoming the executive director of the Delaware Valley Green Building Council. But what he says is that it's valuable for cities in terms of a revamping guide, but also for communities just getting started. And that's where we're at. We are getting started in this. There's more. This is the assistant in Reading, Pennsylvania. Reading was trained in September. They put their, to get weighed in or to get rated in Sunday night. And I fully agree with him that, for a community to remain competitive in the 21st century, in a nutshell, he believes that it's the single best resource to improve a community. And that's what we like about it. It takes all our measurements and integrates it. The other thing is that we've been invited in our discussions with the STAR people, we've been invited to be a Leadership STAR Community Program, and that means that they're going to give us a 75% scholarship, and the EAC has voted to take our funds from our sustainability fund and pay the remaining balance of that. What will we get from that? We're going to be trained in Washington, D.C. Jen Sherwood is going to go with me. My lead mentor, Alan Jalan, who designed the world's first ecological airport, and he lives locally, is going to go. And we get a lot of hand-holding, because we really feel that we need that. We need the people from the STAR staff. We will be mentored by a STAR community. We will get some public relations in telling our story, and we also get the verification tool. We get the whole 9 yards. So, in sum, this is a way to demonstrate how we're reaching our sustainable goals, verified by an independent third party. It gives us a designation while raising environmental awareness among citizens, and it also will not incur any costs to the township. Our EAC is on board. We want to be, like you guys are, a sustainable model to the community, and so we have to fund this, and we have figured out how to do that, and we've raised money, and we're looking forward to doing that. So with that, I'd like to ask you, open this up for discussion and questions.
I'll just start by channeling Commissioner Spiegelman, who would ask you first and foremost if you can send that PowerPoint to him, so we can have a copy of that. And then I'll open it up to the rest of the board if anybody has any questions. Commissioner Schreiber?
So it looks wonderful, first of all. It also looks like a lot of work on a regular, ongoing basis.
Yes.
So are the people, I guess it's the EAC, committed to doing that? I'm assuming it's going to take...
It's going to take several months. I hope, we're going to try to get it in by February. I am the project manager. It is a lot of work. We are going to be looking for interns. I think the fact that there's a partnership with Penn State Abington, I think the fact that Penn State Abington has plans to build a LEED Gold building, I think this can be another way for them to signal their sustainability. Alan Jalan is a graduate of Philadelphia University's Masters in Sustainability program. He was the right-hand man of the person who founded the program. We're going to be looking to them for interns. And it's based...
When does this actually start?
So we get trained at the end of this month, and that's, basically the kickoff. That's when it starts. I've already gotten access to the technical guide, and I'm looking at it. I can give you an illustration if you want to see how a point is scored, if you want to get into that detail. But, just for instance, it's really about working with partnerships. So the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission measures greenhouse gas emissions for all the municipalities. In 2005, we had something like 650,000 metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions, and in 2010, it was about 615. So we've made an increase, or we brought it down by 6.5%. And so the goal in that area is to reduce it by 80% by 2050. So if we remain on the same path, we will do it by about 54%. So that's why we think this is a great way to look at what are best practices and what are other ways that we can, bring that up. I mean, Ed Miklo has done a phenomenal job, as you all know, in terms of the LED lights. We have one of the best recycling rates in the township, I should say in the state. I worked with Matt Lahaza about 2011 to look at we did the portfolio management for all the township buildings, including the water pumps. Mm-hmm. So we would go through probably that process again to see what kind of changes have we made. And I think that's a great way to report back to you all to let you know about our energy efficiency, in our municipal operations. But it's also a way, like I met with Doug Callentine of the, as you know, and he was excited about it. Right now they're at a point, their focus is getting local businesses in, but we want to look at the big picture as well, to, look at what are programs and projects that have worked in other townships. Penn State Abington would like to do an incubator project, and that's one of the points. So we think we can help all the community partners through this program. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Commissioner Jones?
I assume that first of all, a wonderful presentation. I was able to get kind of a sneak preview by Jen Sherwood. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
I assume the school district will be a partner, or there'll be opportunity for collaboration there as well?
We haven't met with them yet. I sit on the board of the school district's educational foundation. I mean, we've got partnerships. What we've done so far is we don't believe in making plans for people, but with people. So we met with different department heads. We met with Doug. We met with Mike Powers. We met with Larry Mateo. We met with Ed Michelow. Tomorrow morning, we're meeting with George Wrigley. So far, everybody has looked at the measurements. I mean, we did a detailed 1-hour full presentation. We looked at all the measurements, and, you know, everybody bought into it, okay? Tara is my mentor. Tara is guiding me. We are going to meet every week if necessary, but we are very committed to doing this. It is a lot of work, but we think it's a great way to engage the community.
And, yeah.
Go ahead.
Second question would be, is there a need that you would have at some point from either individually or as the aggregate, the Board of Commissioners, and will you have a need for gathering assistance and helping hands from everyday residents who might not be involved with EAC at this point?
Yes, we would like that. I mean, you know, after I'm trained and I have a better understanding of what's required, we would love to, you know, be open, not just report back to residents, but actually give residents a way of looking at this, you know, going on this venture with us. Absolutely. That's what this is all about. And this is really about civic engagement.
Thank you very much, and thank you for bringing this to the township and the residents.
Any other questions?
Commissioner Ecker?
Kaki, I thought that was terrific. Thank you for doing that. Are there other opportunities for partnership with other community organizations, civic associations, local churches, and what is the plan in terms of outreach to them?
So one of the things, for instance, tonight I was at the Rydell Meadowbrook Civic Association. Every year they have a summit, and we're in talks with them about using this as one of the cornerstones. A lot of communities kick this off with a big to-do. So if we have Penn State, that's a possibility. I can't say that's going to happen, but we've been having that discussion. I'm committed to going out to any civic organization and explaining this. Really the next part is to engage people. I mean, this is a lot of work done, a lot of work to happen. We want to have an informed community. Some communities actually, their path is to do all the work, you know, gather all the data, submit it, get a star or not get a star, and then report back to the community. I'd like to be more ambitious and involve people. Like I said, we want to make plans with people and not for people. But it's really, you know, before this, I guess, even myself, I thought of, you know, what is sustainability? Is it tree hugging? Is it, you know, just the built environment? Is it just climate and energy? Is it just natural lands? Is it just working with Doug Wendell and Ed Michelow? It's not. So I can tell you this, that I was involved in the zoning rewrite on the alternative energy piece, and that was a great working group. And when it ended, you know, Judith Kraka, who is the sustainability director over at Penn State, or at the hospital, said, you know, we all work great together. And she said, gee, I just wish we had another project that we could put our collective heads together on. And I think this is it.
Mr. DiPlacido?
Thanks, Kaki. That was a great presentation. Since you're taking Jen Sherwood with you, I would expect the McKinley Civic Association to have a full report when you return. Okay.
Okay, I think this is great. Commissioner Jones?
For the record, McKinley, but she's Ward 3. For the record.
Yeah, but she's been there to the McKinley meetings more than you have.
Okay, but she's been where?
Are you two done?
Ward 3 person.
Kaki, I think this is great. I know we're just talking about it and you're just getting started, but I thought earlier when we see, you know, we have Dr. Altadonna with the Audubon Society, we have Greta with the Briar Bush, we have Jen with the EAC, and then the students from Abington. And by the way, Dr. Altadonna, if you can take that back to the school district, how impressive Lexi and Rachel were. They were incredible. They did a really good job, and I think you should share that with them. This is exciting. I think we've got a lot of good people in Abington. I think you've hit the nail on the head, and it's going to be a lot of work, to Commissioner Shriver's point. But we have a lot of good people doing a lot of good work right now, and clearly you have the energy and the motivation to do it. I think it's exciting. I'm looking forward to what we can do as a board to help, and to echo Commissioner Jones, what we can do individually to help. So please keep us involved.
Well, we're going to ask you to help us promote this, put this out in your newsletter, and all I can say is we hope to be a shining star, and thank you very much.
This is great. Thank you so much. So that ends our formal agenda. We'll just open it real quickly to any last comments in general by staff or audience. Sure.
So, Laura Lehman. So needless to say, you know that I have another view, okay? So, great presentation. Lovely program, okay? But that's actually what our EAC is. They're the Environmental Advisory Council, and they have been involved in exactly those kinds of projects, making partnerships with people in every area of the township where it's needed. And this is actually a nonprofit corporation, okay, that it will be, that's separate. So it's like the EAC dividing itself and becoming two EACs, you know, or you could invite 20 or 30 other nonprofits in. The idea is to get grant money, which happens to be my money, your money, their money, everybody's money, okay, and to account for spending it. Some people call that, and I didn't even know what that term was, some people call that walking around money. Commissioners bring it in and approve it, and then that grant money gets used in many ways for people who are very big supporters. So that municipal bridge is very, very important. And as you know, I've been working on environmental issues in this township without the pleasure of having some of our EAC, Shade Tree Commission, and other environmentalists, some of whom are now in this room, standing up next to me saying, what about that dead forest where trees are dying like crazy, but instead there was a grant to count trees in the Economic Development District. Okay? And so that money came basically out of my pocket, generally. Not always, but generally it's out of the public pockets. And it comes into the township, and it goes to the people that the commissioners and those who bring it in choose to give it to. And that's why they call that walking around money. So that the walking around money, for those who don't know, and I know you all know, but at home they may not all know, is what they call political money that politicians use to give out to help people that support them. And that's part of the problem here, okay, that the number of nonprofits that has inundated this township and the number of nonprofit programs where we're counting trees while we're letting trees die. We are pouring pesticides in our streams while we're teaching people about not putting pesticides into the environment. We're killing the bees while we're working with a new organization that's going to talk to us about how to save the bees. Okay? We are killing we're poisoning with West Nile spray. We can't get anybody to stand up with us and say, you're spraying for West Nile all over everybody. Let's talk about this in our communities. But our leading environmentalists are not there. Their names are on a plaque on a project that actually has gotten a truck from Westchester to Bristol to Abington to drill a few holes. That's not sustainable. We know that. And this is what really is not good for our communities. We have an Environmental Advisory Council, and everything that you can learn in that STAR communities are things, for instance, that we talked about, as Kaki said, in the zoning rewrites, when we talked about energy, when we talk about our streams, when we talk about pesticides.
Ms. Lehman, I'm going to ask you to start to wrap it up. You're just about your 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, and I've said enough already, so thank you. And I just do not believe that this is a good program. We don't need an executive director. We have an EAC very involved, and I thank the ladies for their service that they have done. That's good. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Yep, Director Wendell.
I forgot to mention in the beginning, last week I was contacted by the solicitor for the Jackson family, who is the family we purchased Jackson Park from.
Right.
And he said that the Jackson family was committed to giving us $25,000 towards the work to be done in Jackson Park. So that will go along with the $15,000 for the capital that we have, and if we do get the Pico Green Region grant for $10,000, then I think we have more than enough to remove all of the invasives in Jackson Park and to establish a couple of meadows, and also, more importantly, to have a conservation management plan developed for that site, which can be the template for other areas that may also need those types of attention. So we're going for the grant, and whether we get the grant or not, we're still going to be going forward with the other work that we're going to be doing in Jackson Park, and a lot of that is because of the Jackson family. So I'd just like to thank them personally.
Great. No, that's thank you. Thank him on our behalf, or my behalf. I don't speak for the whole board here, but
I've already sent the letter to their lawyer.
that's great. Thank you. Commissioner Myers.
Mr. Chairman, we just can't let some of the statements that went on. The speaker spoke about walking around money, which is a very old political term known as wham. In my 18 years, I don't know of any commissioner, township commissioner, in this township or any other that ever had any wham money. Again, it was an old, very old term with state legislatures and federal legislatures and legislators, and it was disbanded years ago, and that kind of money is handled through grants like DCNR grants and DCED grants that are given to organizations to do the job that they do. And I would also like to apologize to our guests here tonight that all of the work that you do is truly appreciated by 99.9% of this township. So please don't leave here thinking that it isn't. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Myers. I'd just like to echo those comments. Thank you so much for all the work you do. And as I said, I'm very excited. I'm looking forward to working with you going forward with this project and all the projects that you do. Thank you so much. Make a motion to end the meeting? We just did general comments. Any other comments from the audience? No, it's okay. Motion to end the meeting? Second. So moved. Meeting is adjourned.
Sorry, when she said she was talking about that previous agenda, I thought she was going to no, I take this.
There we go. You got a big fat wad in your pocket? Hand it out. Give me some of that.